please do not forget to hit the bell icon and subscribe to the podcast. Hello, everyone. This is Palan, and thank you for tuning in to listen to the podcast Stuck in the Middle. Here we discuss psychological themes, issues of ambivalence, and uncertainty. Today, we're going to talk about a very interesting subject: workplace intelligence. People, culture, performance, and how do we unlock the potential of people, of course, to drive business success. To do this, we have with us Miss Natalia Navin, the Chief People Officer of Pos Malaysia and a long-time practitioner in the human resources management domain. Thank you for joining us. And, Natalia, there was something very interesting. I just saw this on the Gallup Worldwide report. It said the global percentage of engaged employees is declined to a meager 21%, and productivity losses to the global economy has been about something like 438 billion US dollars. What's happening, Natalia?
Well, thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to the chat. So very shocking numbers there. And I think there's so many things happening in the world at the moment. And we are at a stage in life where we have 5 generations at work.
Sure.
And those numbers tell us even more so that the importance of leaders, importance of building trust in the organization, and the importance of human connection. With that comes engagement. With that comes productivity.
Sure. Of course, yeah. But, one of the things that I was always concerned about, we talk about workplace intelligence. Now, everybody talks about AI. We talk about chat GPT. So people are getting very concerned. But workplace intelligence. So how do you see, because you've been a practitioner looking after human resources for ages, even though I know you're very young, but you have tremendous years of experience. But really, what is workplace intelligence? Are we just referring to the technical competence, the cognitive ability, or are we looking at something else? Emotional intelligence, ability to uh, be proactive. So, what does it include, Natalia?
So, workplace intelligence is about having a group of people who work together, who make decisions,
Right.
good, right decisions for the organization.
Right.
And for you to have that, you need to have a few elements, right? Obviously, the obvious ones are, as an organization, you need to have the right systems, the right processes for people to be able to make fast decisions.
Sure.
On top of that, you need to have the technology, the data to help you, to enable you to have the right information, to synthesize that information, and to make that decision.
So the process supports people. yeah?
Exactly. But more important than that is the human side of
Right,
it, the
right.
culture in an organization.
Okay.
That's the biggest element of workplace intelligence. And what I mean by that is an organization that has a clear purpose, that the employees are able to connect, align that purpose to their, internal motivation. An organization that has the right values, values that are codified and clear to the organization, and an organization that encourages learning. People are encouraged to learn, to be better, to make better decisions as they grow and as they learn, and the social and emotional connection. Having leaders that build trust and connect, that listen to the people, having all those elements, that's what's going to create that workplace intelligence.
So it's like what Amazon, Jeff Bezos says. He says, I'm never looking at competition. I'm always obsessed with customers. And customers keep changing their preferences. And so we need to be intelligent enough to spot it, right?
Exactly, yes.
So really, I think we need to continue to respond to the needs of customers. But you talked so much about culture. But most of our organizations, they are large organizations, and it takes time to change.
Yeah.
But then the world is changing so fast. So, what would your thoughts be on how do we move from a traditional culture, or maybe even a bureaucratic culture, to something that's empowering people, so that people feel very happy to come to work. They don't ever thank God it's Friday,
Yeah.
but they will have to say thank God it's Monday.
Yeah.
So how do we move the transition from the traditional culture to something of empowering culture?
And any organization that wants to make such a big shift has
Right.
to be very purposeful and very intentional about it, and they have to put a few things in place, right?
Purposeful, you said.
Yes.
Yeah. I remember that because Ranjay Gulati, one of my professors in Harvard, he used to say deep purpose organizations.
Yes.
Sorry to
No,
interrupt.
but
Please go
it's
on.
true because it starts from there, right? And to kind of move from like a command and control style to a more empowering style, first you need to make sure the leaders behave like coaches, leaders who are more of a servant leadership style, leaders who are emotionally aware of their emotions, build connection, have EQ to build connection with people, leaders who listen. And then once you have the right leaders, you need to make sure that you are clear about your values. You codify those values so employees are clear. And if you, again, moving from command control to more empowering, then you would want to have values where you encourage respect, collaboration, trust, and you codify it, and you also address wrong behaviors so the employees see that the wrong behaviors are being addressed.
Sure.
But then on top of that, you also need to make sure that you have the structure is right. You might need a flatter structure so decisions can be made not just at the top but further down the line. And you need to communicate, share information. The whole divide and conquer approach where you keep information, that won't work in an enabling environment. Share information with your employees, trust them with that information, and have a two-way communication, not a top-down, but a communication where you ask them for feedback and you listen to understand.
So
the
you talk
feedback.
about leadership at all levels.
Yes.
It's interesting because you keep talking about codifying. I think you used that word about twice or thrice, I think, in the conversation. And I know that they always say that knowledge management, when you want to institutionalize it within an organization, you need to codify it.
Yes.
But when organizations get large,
Yes.
how do you go about the process of codification?
So when an organization is large, it's even more important. So when it comes to values, when it comes to culture, the same word could mean different things to different people, right? Especially if you have a cross-cultural organization, an organization that operates in many different countries. That same word can mean many different things. So codifying is critical in that you identify, you spell out what is the values, but not just stop there, but you have behavioral traits attached to those values. So when I say respect, I also show the employees what do I mean by respect, and that reduces that chance of misunderstanding or having different understanding of the
So
same thing.
employees learn by observing what you do rather than what you tell them.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, it's the behaviors that we want, right?
Right. I think you talked about the behaviors you want and you talked about an empowering culture, but I just wanted to just interrupt and say that, when my children, they were all educated in the West, when they came back and they just came back to help me just for a little bit, and then COVID times came along, and I handed it over to them as part of a succession plan. But it's interesting, one of their concerns was, when I asked them, they said, Papa, nobody disagrees with what we say, but if nobody disagrees, how do we actually get any movement in the right direction? I think we need to have a healthy disagreement.
Yes.
And when I looked at empowered cultures, and there was a professor of mine in Harvard, her name was Amy Edmondson, and she always used to talk about Google, where she used to say that they encourage psychological safety. And in Australia, many years ago, they used to say safe places, where I can say something but not get hurt in the
Yes.
process. It's not risky to say something.
Yes.
But we come from a hierarchical culture.
Hmm.
So, how do I get that psychological safety inculcated into the workplace if I'm going to move into this new type of a culture?
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with your children. You know, that echo chamber
yeah,
where everyone's agreeing with each
Yeah,
other.
yeah.
That's
Safe,
a
right?
dangerous.
It's very safe,
Yes,
right?
and but it's dangerous.
Dangerous for
because
the
everyone's
organization,
to the
right? Yeah.
organization, because you're not hearing dissenting views, or you have a bunch of smart people in the room, but the meeting is quiet. That's also dangerous because
Yeah.
you're not
True,
maximizing the
true,
potential of these smart people.
true.
Right? I strongly believe it starts with the leaders.
Mm.
You need to have leaders that build trust by listening, by having empathy, by empowering people, supporting their growth, giving them clarity. When you have all that, the leaders become a coach that people trust.
Yeah.
And when trust exists, people feel safe. They feel seen, they feel heard, they feel psychologically safe. They don't feel afraid, because if I have a dissenting view, I am not going to be humiliated. I'm not going to be, they're not going to, they're not going to get angry at me. No one's going to look at me differently just because I have a different view. But that people can only do that when they feel psychologically safe.
Yeah.
And when you have that, if you build that kind of trust relationship with individuals, and each individuals also build that same connection in the team, then you have a whole team that feels safe. Then you're unlocking the potential of everyone in the team, and you get their commitment. They become creative because they're not afraid of thinking differently. You get better decisions, better innovation, and with that you get the business results.
So you have collaboration, high performance teams,
Yes.
etc. Interesting. So, but there's one more challenge when we talk about people, culture, and performance. When it comes to performance, I know that some people talk about doing away with performance appraisals, because I know that sometimes people say it's a plague that affects organizations. But we do tend to measure very traditional measures. It's revenue, it's sales, etc. But today people are talking about triple P. Talking about people, they're talking about planet and profit. So how do we navigate this challenge and go in and measure what truly matters for the sustainability of an organization?
Right. Yeah. So I managing performance is very, very important.
Sure.
But
We
how?
can't move away from that.
Yes,
right?
because you need to be able to gauge,
Sure.
the performance of people, because you want to reward in
Of
the right
course.
way.
Yeah.
But how you do it is really important.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you. Focusing purely on the targets, on revenue, on sales, is not right.
Sure.
You need to measure the what, but
Sure.
you also need to measure the how. Right? So you could meet your target, but how you got to that
the
target
values
is
are
also very
also
important,
important.
right? So making sure that your performance review ecosystem includes the how as much as the what is important. And having, like a balanced scorecard where you're not just looking at the numbers, but you're looking at engagement, you're looking at morale, you're looking at diversity, succession planning, learning targets. All those targets that would encourage growth, would encourage good behavior is also important.
Sure.
And also to make sure that you get 360 feedback.
Right,
So that people get feedback. Because performance is not just about measuring your performance, it's also about giving you the right feedback so you can be better. And getting that feedback from not just your manager, but your peers, your stakeholders, your customers. So, and that the how will come in from there, as well as putting in cultural competencies in your
very much.
right? So if even if I get all my targets, but my boss should also be asking everyone, is Natalia delivering results without compromising on respect?
Sure.
And if the answer is no, then there is a problem.
There is a
Right?
problem.
Yeah.
No, of course. I know that I've looked up at your background, and you have had gone through several outstanding organizations, each one of them remarkable in their own ways. But let's just revisit and say, what you would have worked with so many people of different caliber, different domains. What do you think are the leadership behaviors that you think help unlock the potential of employees?
Um, so I think kind of similar to what I said earlier, it's leaders who build trust. And you build trust from helping people to grow, from listening to them, having empathy. When you trust, create that psychological
And you're talking
safety,
like-
and then you bring out, you unleash the potential in people. It's amazing because then you get them to kind of the internal motivation comes out because they feel, I feel safe here and I want to be here and I want to deliver, I want to commit. And trust can do
And I
magical
think like
things.
what the word you used was coaching, yeah, or mentoring.
Yes.
And you do this on a regular basis rather than once a year
Exactly.
measuring the performance.
Yeah.
But you do it on a consistent base
Yes.
and
Through
basis,
building
and you earn the
connections.
trust, yeah, and
Yes.
you earn the trust.
Yeah.
Good. Today's world, we talk about workplace intelligence, but today everyone talks about artificial intelligence, AI, and all that. So, how do you think that tools such as these? Now, of course, we know that there are so many benefits, but at the same time, there's so much of worry and caution. But how do you think tools such as AI and other technologies can help us improve workplace performance and culture?
Um, so I agree with you. There are some concerns. I think we need to always ensure we use the data, the technology in an ethical way. It can really help an organization measure performance, build culture with the data and with the technology that can help synthesize the data. You can really know how are you performing, which team's performing better than others, what's the interdependency, so you can see what are the factors that is affecting performance, or good or bad.
Sure.
You get to see behaviors of the organization, who's collaborating with whom, because everything's on a technology platform. You could get feedback, on-time feedback, to know how people are feeling, the mood of the organization, the pulse of the organization. When you get data at scale because you use technology, that can help you know what you need to do, how you need to pivot, do things differently. The data will also help you, measure, are you doing things right? Like, for example, if you're going through a cultural transformation, asking people information about how do you feel about the new culture? Are your leaders behaving the right way? All that data with the technology can really help you, through a transformation.
Many years ago, I read this book, Drive, The Surprising Truth About What Motivates Us by Daniel Pink. And one of the things he said is what science know and what business does is not compatible.
Right.
And he said that we tend to focus so much on extrinsic motivating factors. But he said largely success comes from intrinsic factors. And when we talk about workplace intelligence, how would you kind of correlate intrinsic factors and workplace intelligence for business growth and success? Yeah.
So the intrinsic motivation is what really changes behavior. It's really what it affects how people work.
It's
Right?
a lever, yeah.
It's a massive lever, because if people are doing work because it's meaningful to them, because it has a purpose and it fulfills them, you get much more from them. You get people who are curious. And when they're curious, they're learning, they're innovating, they're making better decisions. When they're passionate about what they're doing. When they're passionate, it would affect the quality of the work that you get from your people. It also means that they're very persistent and they are resilient. When they're faced with a challenge, they don't give up because it means something to them, right? And also because they are passionate about it, they are more focused. You get more commitment from them, and they take more ownership. And when people are doing things because they are internally motivated, they need less monitoring. You can trust that they will deliver, get it to the end.
They display the initiative and they get things done.
And then you get workplace intelligence.
That's right. I was reading this book by Satya Nadella, Control, Alternate, Delete, or Hit the Reset Button, or something like that. And I think one of the interesting things that he said was, he said, look, Steve Ballmer, his boss, wanted to acquire Nokia, and there was arguments, plus and minus, and people, they went around the table, and Satya Nadella said, no, I don't support it. And he writes in the book, and he says, you wondered what Steve Ballmer is going to think about it. And he says it was perfectly fine. There was no consequences because of a disagreement. Each person gets the right to argue their views, but at the end of the day, the organization and the leadership make the decision.
Yes.
I get the best chance to influence a decision, but if not, it's okay. And that's the psychological safety that we talk about.
Absolutely.
Natalia, it's such a pleasure being talking to you. I know that you're one of the leaders in the human resource domain in Asia. But as we come to the close of the podcast, for our audience, would you just leave behind 3 key points that you think is important for workplace intelligence, people, culture, performance, unlocking the potential to drive performance to achieve business growth? Just 3 points.
Three, 3 points. I think everyone should behave like leaders. Don't expect your leaders to be the leader. You need to lead yourself. And as a leader, we need to really focus on building trust in people. And the third one is with trust. With trust comes psychological safety. With psychological safety comes maximizing potential and therefore results.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Natalia. It was a pleasure having you
Thank
with us.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.